Hi guys, and welcome back to day 3 of Quarantine Storytime. Today we'll be reading chapters 3 and 4, because they're both pretty small, of Curse of the Mud Spirit, written by me and illustrated by Cameron Roark. Chapter 3. After jumping into the local Burger Shack's dumpster and fishing out a few number ones for him and his new companion, the kitten hopped down and pranced around in the moonlight. "I have to say," he said, "even if I'm stuck being a kitten, it sure is nice to have legs again. I can run all around and do things I haven't done in years." "Well, I think it's kind of neat being a sludge monster. I mean, I feel all strange inside, but I can never get dirty, so at least I'll never have to take a bath," proclaimed Thomas, waving his stubby, fingerless arms around. Since he was no longer in a pool of mud, he looked like a half-melted scoop of chocolate ice cream, about 2 feet wide, with a trail of mud behind him like the train of a really nasty wedding gown. Together, they ate hamburgers and discussed what they would like to do. The kitten would like to go see the world with Tammy, visit exotic gardens all around the globe, and maybe own his own rodeo station one day. He could have a show about gardening. He did not want to have to use a litter pan, however, and even though he was small, he was sure he would be able to maneuver a toilet with some practice. Thomas wanted to do anything and everything. Maybe go to Louisiana, where the crawfish were abundant. Maybe go to Hawaii, where he could have a cheeseburger in paradise. He, however, was going to miss his mother. She made excellent hamburgers. "Are crawfish and hamburgers all you think about?" asked the kitten. "Is Tammy and gardening all you think about?" asked Thomas. "Touché, Tom, touché." After a discussion of sorts, they decided they should travel across town to the kitten's old house, taking up residence so Thomas could eat the head of her horrid new boyfriend, putting the kitten back with his true love again. On the way, the kitten batted a stone around, and Thomas watched almost hypnotized. "She would always drown the garden when I would have to work late, saying I spent too much time on the job and in the dirt," the kitten said. "That does not sound very nice." "She was only doing it because she loved me so. She wanted all my attention on her because she couldn't get enough," said the kitten in a very uncertain way. On the way, they took a rest at a bus stop, sitting on a bench, covering some smiling lawyer's face. "She would always yell at me, telling me my job wasn't good enough and that she was wasting her time," said the kitten. "That does not sound very nice." "She was only doing it because she loved me so. She was only trying to encourage me to be the best I could possibly be," said the kitten in a very uncertain way. On the way, they paused on a hilltop to watch the sunrise. Thomas had never seen it before, not in any of his 7 years. "She would disappear for days sometimes, and then come home and never tell me where she had been. I would be so worried about her," said the kitten. "That does not sound very nice," said Thomas. "She only did that because she loved me so. She wanted me to never take her for granted, so I would know she was an independent woman. She never wanted our relationship to get boring," said the kitten in a very uncertain way. Chapter 4. They arrived at the house 8:30 in the morning, where they waited in a tree line beside the used-to-be garden. The kitten knew the new boyfriend would be leaving for work soon. As expected, the tall, thin, loafer-wearing boyfriend came out of the house not long after their arrival, carrying his briefcase, making his way to a dark blue Datsun Z parked in the driveway. "That's a sweet ride, kitten," commented Thomas at the sight of the 1970-something deep ocean-colored car. "Yeah, that's my sweet ride, kid," said the kitten with much dismay. He stared at the new boyfriend with a look of hate in his eyes. His fur-lined mouth was puckered tightly. He had tiny black gums, almost like a miniature polar bear. His face loosened a little as he admitted, "Although it looks like he put new tires on her and fixed the back window. It was busted out last time I saw it." As the Z pulled away into the distance, leaving a trail of dust from the soft dirt road behind it, Thomas and the kitten just sat considering what the future would bring now that they were finally here. They realized entertaining the notion was much different than actually being here, being faced with the reality and the gravity of the situation. The kitten knew exactly what he wanted: his old life back with Tammy, the garden, his Z, and his old job. Thomas, the mud spirit, to be quite frank, was on a new adventure and didn't quite know what he wanted. He wanted a little bit of everything and was just excited to be participating in an excellent new journey. So where do you want the plan? Where do you want to stake out at? Where do you want to plan the stakeout at? Asked Thomas. Do you want to take over the garden again? No, I have a better idea, the kitten said in an almost cartoon voice. Follow me. The two sneaked the best they could, which wasn't very stealthy of Thomas, across the lawn and over two slanted double doors leading down to the basement of the house. They were rickety, much like the rest of the place, which looked like it had been made of metal and located near the beach. However, it was not made of metal or located near the beach. In fact, it was made of wood and just wasn't well taken care of and had weathered very poorly. Part of the roof over the porch was falling in. There were a few cinder blocks under it here and there, and bumblebees were living in the walls, having tunneled out little dime-sized holes in the wood for their own homes. This is your prized home? If this is the way the house looks, I can't wait to see Tammy. Is she a hillbilly? Asked Thomas. No. When I was here, this house was beautiful. It was painted a wonderful blue and was very well maintained. Tammy is beautiful too. Just wait till you see her, argued the kitten. After struggling to open the basement doors, Thomas slimed down the stairs into the basement's belly, looking back to see the kitten gracefully hop down the stairs in a way that would make anyone sigh in cuteness. They both planted themselves on the basement floor and sat in silence. Neither of them had thought about what to do after they arrived. Don't worry, I'm sure she's just as lovely as she ever was, inside and out, and I'm sure she will love you in any form you are in. Sam Thomas. The kitten just looked at him blankly and then replied, Ah, I see you are becoming comfortable in your mud spirit abilities. You just read my mind. Whoa, I'm like a superhero. Being the mud spirit isn't so bad, Thomas said with glee. I do miss my favorite hat, though. And now that I have legs again, I feel like I should be wearing some clothes or something, admitted the kitten, as the basement floor was slowly being covered in a layer of mud. Here, concentrate really hard and think about your hat. See if you can bring it to the surface. Thomas narrowed his eyes and filled his cheeks with air, the way the previous mud spirit had done just the day before. He thought hard about his hat, picturing it. Its red bill and white front, its red mesh back with little adjusting tabs, one of the pegs broken off. It seemed to glitter in his mind as if it was straight off of the shelf. Just then, Thomas was so sure he could almost touch it. Pop! It came right out of the mud, as perfect as it was when it was dislocated from his body with his severed head on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. But Thomas continued concentrating. Not long after it had surfaced, there came his overalls. The kitten shouted with excitement, Wow, you are a very quick learner, Tom. Heading over to the overalls, he added, Get me that laundry basket while you're at it. Looks like I might need something to float on in here before much longer. Soon enough, the plastic laundry basket came floating to the surface just as it had the day before. Breaking his concentration, Thomas felt quite exhausted, but still found the energy to pick it up and put on his hat. Of course, it didn't fit the way it used to, so it sludged down the side of his round, muddy head, settling tilted to one side. He smiled in success as the kitten had put on the far too oversized overalls with the straps hanging off of his shoulders. He merely sat on the rest of the denim material, but he beamed. Tom, look, I'm wearing clothes. Their moment of happiness was ruined by a door slamming upstairs. They whipped their heads around to stare up at the open door above them, leading to the kitchen and the rest of the house. Speaking very loudly, Tammy was on the phone. "I don't care if you have to work late. That's stupid." "No, I don't have any plans. I just don't care what you've got to do." After a brief pause, she continued, "Yeah, whatever. It's not like your wife is more important than your job or anything." The kitten's mouth dropped open, and he turned to stare at Thomas, wishing what he had heard was not so. Tammy walked past the open door, yammering away into the telephone. Sorry, my cat's losing her mind. Tammy walked past the open door, yammering away into the telephone, and it was true. She was as beautiful on the outside as the kitten had promised. She had long, strawberry blonde hair, beautiful blue eyes, full Cupid's bow lips, and slender, well-manicured French nails. But by the sound of her voice, she didn't seem quite as magnificent on the inside. Tammy is unimpressed. Blah, blah, blah. You always have something to say back to me with that whiny little voice of yours. Gosh, if you sound like Philip used to. Stop calling me baby so much. It makes me want to barf all over you," she said, like a high and mighty princess or a sniffling schoolyard bully. The kitten stuck his tongue out and made a face like the room reeked of toe cheese. The rest of the day, they sat in the basement, conjuring up ways to lure this new boyfriend into the basement where Thomas could bite his head off. "Maybe we could just make a lot of racket and get him down here, so when he comes to see what the noise is all about, we can get him," exclaimed Thomas. "No, he may be prepared to attack if that's the case. He might think it's a burglar or something." After they discussed the many different ways to trick the new boyfriend, it began to get later in the day, and sometime around early evening, they heard the Dachshund pull up outside. As the door slammed shut, the kitten and Thomas had made their way to the little window. Standing on a pile of milk crates and boxes, they peered out to see the new boyfriend walking towards the house, carrying what looked like a potted plant. It had vibrant colors and a very odd, sharp shape to its leaves and flowers. "A bird of paradise? What a jerk! He probably doesn't even know the first thing about taking care of it. He's probably bringing it to Tammy as a gift, since he was obviously being silly on the phone to her earlier. If he knew her as well as I did, he would know she hates flowers, or plants of any kind, really, so it's a horrible gift for her," said the kitten, with so much attitude it was easy to ponder where he keeps it in such a tiny body. "That new boyfriend is going to upset Tammy if he's not careful." "Wouldn't it be the new husband now?" asked Thomas, meaning no harm. The kitten quickly shushed him and continued looking out the window as if Thomas hadn't made the comment at all. "Andy? Andy, is that you outside?" screeched Tammy from inside the house somewhere. As the new boyfriend, now labeled as Andy, walked towards the house, he veered off towards the basement window, startling our two heroes, and sat the flower down underneath the overhang. He answered back to Tammy, "Yes, darling, I'll be in soon. Just 1 minute. I'm checking the pressure on the tires. They seemed a little bit low on the way home." "That liar! He is not checking the tire pressure. Why is he lying to my Tammy? He is even worse than I thought," the kitten said, as if ready to pounce through the screen of the window and tear Andy's jugular right out with his little fangs. Andy picked up a large empty flower pot from a shelf and carried it over to the flower, looking over his shoulder all the while. Seemingly rushed as to not be found out by Tammy, Andy removed the bird of paradise from its styrofoam planter and put it in the much roomier flower pot and began filling it with nice, thick black soil he had in bags hidden under the house. "Andy!" sounded from inside. The new husband stopped what he was doing, looked at the flower longingly, and made a long sigh and answered, "Coming, honey," and turned to walk around the house towards the front door. As he disappeared around the corner, Tammy appeared in the window looking out under the covered carport area where Andy had just been. She immediately spotted the bird of paradise and glared at it as if it had said something horrible about her mother. Still glowering right at it, she slid the window shut as if to keep any joy it might cause out of the house. Moving over to the door leading into the kitchen from the basement to get better sound quality, our two wary friends peered up to see what was going to happen. Tammy was bound to mention the bird of paradise, not that she would call it by its name. Instead, she opened the conversation to Andy with some rude comments about that horrible little car he insists on driving, and that ugly pair of glasses he insists on wearing. Obviously not listening to her, Andy said, "I was thinking about using that old muddy patch by the tree line to start a garden." Quietly, Tammy said, "That's where Philip's garden was," almost to herself. For a moment, the kitten's heart swelled up, thinking she felt the same pang in her heart that he had felt for the last 6 years. But it was broken by Tammy saying, "He was such a pain. If you really want to follow in his dorky footsteps, go for it. But I can tell you right now, that stupid garden of his was one of the reasons I booted him out of this place and kept all of his things. If you really want to take the chance of me and you ending like that, then go for it." The kitten's heart sank even further than it had been before and lower than he ever thought possible. "She does not sound very nice," said Thomas. "She's only saying that because she misses me so and does not know how else to react to my absence. It must be hurting her something awful," said the kitten as he slinked away from the stairs, not bearing to listen anymore. He ended up at the crates, looking out of the basement window. He stared over at the bird of paradise and said very quietly, "That's pretty neat, that he wants to start a garden and bought such a beautiful flower. That's pretty neat." The end of chapter 3 and 4. Join me tomorrow for day 4 quarantine story time, chapter 5. See you guys then.